we are, and we add some vibes, and it's starting. And we have Shane here today.
What is going on?
Hey, Shane. So before we jump into who's Shane, what he's doing with his life, and where's the biggest mistakes and best things you've ever done? Yeah. Today we're chatting about. Wait, let me make the music a little bit more ambient. All right. So today we're chatting about AI, content, SEO, AI, GPT, AI, you know, that thing that everybody's now trying either to avoid or only talk about that. So today we're going to talk about that. No, I mean, that's how every stream and every content thing now happens. You either deliberately try to avoid it, this topic, or you just talk only about it, right? So today we're gonna, I think, talk only about that. All right, so meet everybody, Shane, and I cannot do a better intro than you yourself, so tell us a bit about yourself, man.
Oof, okay, what do I do? Well, I do Webflow SEO and Content, trying to more specialize rather than generalize. It's always the ongoing battle. Work for a couple different clients, and I've really only been I've only really been doing this like full time for like a year. So before that though, we got Isabel in there. Before that, I had like an online e-commerce business, so I learned a lot for like a few years running that, and then transitioned more into the client side of things. So it's kind of where I'm at the last few years. Yeah.
What were the struggles of getting into Webflow SEO kind of game in that first year? What was the hardest thing?
Realizing like Webflow development is far different than the Shopify store or anything like that. Everything like class systems is huge. Obviously makes projects way more scalable, just way easier to build out like crazy. Shopify, you're pretty much locked into. Oh, there we go. Shopify, you're pretty much locked into like your template. And I have a few friends still who run stores, and it's a struggle just to get basic updates on pages. The CMS systems work way different. Oh, and code. Webflow is not lying about the clean semantic code thing. I mean, I compared a Webflow page to a Shopify page, and it was like a tenth of the code. It was like 300 lines of code for Webflow and almost 3,000 for Shopify. And when you look at semantics and how Google interprets that, we'll just go right into SEO here. When you look at semantic structure and the way, when Google is indexing a page, they're literally just reading your code. That's all they can do. It's just a dumb robot. And so, when you look at it like that, it's crazy the difference, when you're talking about like page loads and all that. But semantic structure is huge. It's more important than I think people realize. So,
I mean, when you put it that way, 300 lines to 3,000, it makes you think, right? Because when you think about it, like Google gives every site a crawl budget, right? So how much energy your site deserves. And the bigger you grow, the more they trust, the more they give you that energy, like daily, hourly, or whatever, weekly, monthly. So 300 lines of code against 3,000 lines of code, that's like 10th of a crawler budget used for. So basically you can have a 10 times bigger site and it will be indexed every day, as opposed of if you would have it on WordPress, which is like sounds crazy when you put it that way, right?
Yeah. But when you think about like, and you're clearly really good at this, but when you think about sitemap structure and the way that Google goes through internal linking, right? It starts on your homepage and makes its way through the structure. It's only going to go so far into those. And so if it doesn't always fully index a page. I found pages that aren't fully indexed for whatever reason. That's a crawl budget thing and a lot of other logistics around that. But if it doesn't go deep into your website, it's not going to capture all those things and you're not going to rank for stuff. So, having that clean code is actually way more important than people seem to realize. So,
Hi, let's jump into the topic. That's awesome, man. I see that we could have started this not with AI. Like, would have been fun to just start
That's
it
SEO.
elsewhere.
Yeah, let's call that SEO. That works.
We might have
you.
we might have you more times here because I see that. Yeah, I want to learn. Now I have so many questions that I forgot that we're talking about AI. Honestly,
Write them down real quick.
All right, so. Should I share the Figma board so it's a little bit less boring to stare at us? Something like
that might be
wait,
fun.
Let's do the Figma board. It's not that we prepared a lot or anything.
We put together enough ideas. I say we prepared.
Wait, window. This window. All right. So. All right, so here it is. So today, content SEO AI, what's next? I mean, I have so many questions here written down in weird order and intentionally didn't want to put an order into this. Wait, there's like always, there's an issue. Oh yeah, no, it should be good. Wait, let me double present. I'm still learning, guys, the software. I'm really sorry that's... All right, so...
I was about to pull up the stream on my phone just so I could watch, and then I realized it's going to connect to my AirPods, and that would have been a horrible idea. So I quickly X'd out of it.
One moment. Let's try again. All right. So this one. All right, now it's more like it. Whew. Okay, still learning
there we
how
go.
to do all of this. So you're looking at the same board, or if you're not, want to pick a question to start with, or just because there's so many.
Let's start at the top. Go back to the top there.
Yeah.
I want to pull up. Ooh, can I drag this in? Will it just pull over? I'm going to quote Dharmesh Shah. He was CEO of HubSpot, one of the co-founders. He had an interesting point, and he said,
"This point, right?
There you go. Yes." With some other things around there. But he said, I don't think ChatGPT and other apps are going to replace Google anytime soon. It's simply just a UX change. And I thought, when I saw that, it was like all this heightened just AI, just this fire hose and fire hydrant of just information in the last 5 or 6 months just came way down. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy, I listened to him on a podcast. He is incredibly smart. And I think he has a really good point. Like, it's just, when I think about it, I think of revenue first, right? Google's search revenue is just, is so much of their revenue, and they cannot afford to lose that. And so I think they're going to find a way to replace that. And the more I look at it, I'm like, I think they are it's just going to be this UX change. You're going to go into Google and you're going to have the option to grab the chat bot, or you could just search Google like normal, and they'll just find a way to funnel ads into there. And I was like, and all this talk and like chit chatter and stuff, it kind of boils down to that. And when I saw that, I was like, you know what? I'm not really bothered by any of this anymore.
So do you think people will start gating content because of that? Because then, because currently, like, the exchange we get, and we work with teams to get that exchange, is we work really hard. We classify data for you guys for Google, right? Because Google's mission, vision statement is organize world's information. So we do the hard work and organize specific branch of information for you. That's how SEO works, like, right? Without the backlinks part, with the content part, right? So we organize that for you. And in exchange, you show that information to those who care about it. And then they visit our site. So we can convert, 10 or 1% of those visitors into something. That's how everybody makes money. Everybody's happy. And if it's a very, very, commercial term, then maybe it's just easier to pay per click to Google directly and just say, hey, just send me leads. That's going to be way much easier. So do you think there's some sort of gating will be happening? Because what we don't want to happen is that nobody visits our sites, but the data is still used, right? So we still organize the data, but now nobody's getting it in return. And we can imagine this collapsing rapidly, because immediately when you get that, I'm not getting anything from that, why would I, give it for free for AI? What do you think about that?
That's a really tough one, because that's like a niche specific question and all that. Okay, the first thing that came to mind was like email capture, right? Like a lot of these free ebooks you can grab if you put in your email or stuff like that. And that, I mean, that's not going to change, right? That'll stay there. But I'm wondering what if they put blog posts behind some sort of capture basis that is bot protected or something like that?
You mean
That's
paid?
a tough one.
You mean paid subscription? Because that's bot protected, right?
Yeah, well, as long as it's not just JavaScript and it's pulling from an API, yeah, it's protected. But man, that is a tough one because there's so many ways I could take that.
Yeah, by the way, guys, those who are listening now or later, we're just speculating here. Nobody knows the speed of what's happening here.
I thought we had hard qualitative and quantitative data we were basing all this off of.
Yeah. Yeah,
No,
this Figma board is and that one doc is the most the biggest data set on this.
Yeah.
So
it's really tough because then you get into like copyright issues, right? So if you're like, I'm sure there's lawyers working on this right now, like to come up with stuff to go against AI and protect people, especially really like high thought leaders and stuff like that. But it's really tough because we're feeding AI right now with just what's on the internet, right? And what we're giving it. Certain ones can't scan the internet. Some of them can. There's a lot of different stuff going on. But that's where I really got into this the other day on the State of Flow too, of like the bias that we have into it. Keep me on track here though. So do we think there's gated content? It's so tough. I think there's going to be a lot of people who lean into that, to be honest. And I think that's where like marketing in general is kind of going, is right. Like there's kind of been this influencer thing in the last few years with TikTok and other platforms. But I think the more exclusive, the membership style, the curated content is, and paywall doesn't mean it's like they could still do a free paywall, right? There's still like you just have to log in or something like that, right? So we just call it paywall. Gated, I guess we'll use gated. There could be free gated stuff, there could be paid gated stuff, but I think it fits the buyer persona more than anything now, and it creates a human connection, a human experience to go into, I don't know, all kinds of platforms and just, hey, I get exactly what they're giving me, and it protects it from AI. But then the other question is, if everyone gates content, who feeds the AI bots and who's even going to use them at that point, right? So
yeah, then AI bots will learn from already AI written content. And when we touch the point where we know that AI lies, which is, by the way, this is a great segue into Isabel's question. So either of us are using AI for SEO in our day-to-day work, or do you use, Shane, AI?
Pretty much not. I've left a lot of Facebook groups in the last few months because of this. I can't stand, I mean, I don't mind ChatGPT, but it just got too much. And there's people creating tools right now that reverse engineer the watermark so you can still use ChatGPT. There's people creating all kinds of tools right now to actually utilize AI. Whereas I'm like, it is pretty average performance. People are like, oh, you're not prompting it right. Well, how many words do I have to put in just to get out? I'd rather just go write the article and be creative myself.
I mean, you will not force feed it the structure. So wait, I had a question here. So
basically the answer is no, I'm not using it right now. Occasionally I go to it and I just say, hey, give me 3 ideas for this. Give me an idea for this. But it's very basic, and at this point, I'd still rather think for myself, to be honest.
So to answer Isabel's question, I've been using GPT-3 ever since Jasper got released, so it's almost 2 years. Almost immediately when Copy AI showed up, I moved to that, and I used it weekly for one specific type of project, one specific type of content every week for almost 2 years now. And that project ended last year. So like in December or something. And ever since then, I haven't used it. And the reason, like a short story, what, how, and why, is there are specific types of content where you can use it, but you are still making the structure. So to just kind of iterate, it's an e-commerce type of content that no user usually knows that exists, but it allows crawlers to understand what's here. So when you visit a product category on any, I don't know, let's say shoes, right? So you visit, some sort of a, I don't know, red shoes category, right? And they're listed. What you usually don't know is there's like a text after those products that some SEO wrote that just relies on buy red shoes shop and things like that. So yes, I was doing that at scale, but that's the only content I could write because A, I know no human ever will read this. And two, I still make the heading structure. So I still know better than AI what kind of headings need. And I just then press enter in between those headings, allow it to fill it in. And it's still a lot of editing work because AI, as I say, like lies with a straight face and acts like everything is okay. So that's my answer to this question. I use it, but it's really hard to find a use case. And you're still working so much before to prepare structure. Just here you can prepare it at scale. And then the other thing that happens is and afterwards you have to edit it heavily because you have to catch these mistakes. Like we tried it with one of my wife's business and it was AI proudly announced that sewing machine that also comes with a pedal. And you're like, it's like saying a car that comes with a steering wheel. Yes, we know. Yes, every human knows that. But AI finds this as a feature, as a like, hey, so that's I think what's the problem. Sorry for a tangent. So continuing with
So I think like you just said, basically there is some use cases where you can utilize it, and there are a lot of people that are using it that I've seen right now that it just gets like them from step like 1 to step 3, and then they take it from step 3 to step 10, and they rework it. And I think it's all fine and dandy. And maybe you can use it like, oh, I'm really stuck on this one idea. Let me just fill in some stuff. I'll rewrite it all. There are ways to do this. And I think eventually we'll have to, right? I think AI will get better and it'll have to be the starting place for what we're using, like SEO and writing content, stuff like that. But I've seen people using it for like keywords, and it's like, well, it can create keywords, but we have no search volume or no metrics or anything on that. And like, even SEMrush data or Ahrefs data isn't perfect, but why would you do that? Right. So, that's just my hot take on that.
And how did you find, like you said, quality is, what did you say about AI content quality?
Yeah. I mean, it just sounds like a real young kid wrote it. Like they knew something about the topic. They tried. They had like structure, right? They knew how to start it, put in some points, and then have a conclusion. But it was just super thin, right? That's probably my biggest thing right now. Is it's just thin, right? I follow Google's guidelines pretty closely when it comes to content. Like it's people first content, and they actually just put out. I might have thrown this. Yeah, I did throw this in the thing here. I'm gonna pull this up. Google. Search docs, but basically,
if you want to share it or then let me know, I will.
I'm gonna drop.
Oh yeah, just drag and drop. Yeah, sure.
Well, I don't know if I can pull it over. I'm gonna throw the link in our chat here. That works. Can you still see that?
In the chat. Sorry. Yeah.
Yes, sorry, in our chat.
In the chats.
But basically, like AI is just going to create that thin, low-level, non-experienced, non-expert content.
Oh, yeah. That's a link.
Oh, it doesn't work in your country. Shucks. Here, I'll just screenshot.
Oh wait, yeah. There's one missing. There you go. So so you read this summary?
Yeah, that's a pretty new guidance. It takes you through a lot of their other guidance, right? But
I think this is the summary, guys. If you want to see what you have to Google, that's one word.
Yeah, And a month or so ago, they just added that extra E to the beginning for, I think it's expert.
Yeah.
It's either expert or experience. But
Experience, I think. It was before. Wait, I always forget what it
just
means,
click on
but
it, see
I
what it
know
says.
oh yeah.
I don't memorize these. No one does. But
that's not entirely that. But wait, let me pull up the.
Is it expertise? I think that might be it.
Yeah, that extra E just happened recently. That's true.
Yeah. But regardless, like AI is still, in my opinion, it's still at that kind of base level. It's not going to like, I think if people are just funneling it into their website right now, they're going to be hurting in maybe a year or 2 or 3 when this whole dynamic changes again. And we're able to detect that really just weak content that shows that you really like are not an expert on this. And that's kind of where I align. But I also just keep really high standards for everything that I do. And so that's kind of where
But you write content for clients yourself?
No, I outsourced a lot of that from other content writers. That's just not my expertise. I'm very technically minded. And so, I mean, can I write content? Yeah, but I leave that to like copywriters and stuff. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that.
It's fun that you say, so you have, okay, so wait, so this is interesting. So you have a lot of experience then reading other people when other people write content for your strategy. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, because you are probably the first ever person, or maybe not, that's not a common thing at least, that says, hey, when I read AI content, I think it's A, thin, and B, like a kid writes. And I was saying this for, I don't know, like now, I think it took me 6 months using AI to be completely like aware of this paradox where I think a 3-year-old wrote this. The problem is it has insanely good grammar, syntax, and understanding of structure. But it's still a 3-year-old that wrote this because there's no thinking behind it. It's just good text. And it's really hard to explain because you have to work a lot with content to spot that.
Yeah, and you know what's funny too is I actually, for probably a month there, any LinkedIn post or Twitter post, I was just feeding into ChatGPT. I was like, hey, how's my grammar? How's my punctuation? And it would say good every time. It's great. It looks great. The writing's creative, blah, blah, blah. It would just kind of lie to me. Like you said, lie to me with a straight face. I love that. That was a really good way to say that. And then I would prompt it a second time. Every time I'd say, are you sure I didn't miss a comma here? And I'd intentionally leave a comment out, or a comma. And it would say, oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. There needs to be a comma there. Oh, you missed something here. Oh, you should probably say this way. And so it's always on that second or third prompt, it would finally get it right. So do we as humans fail on the second or third time? So yes, we still fail. But here's what I'm going to, AI entries look wrong. Here's what I'll bring up, maybe even lead into this a little bit, is what people maybe aren't willing to realize is AI is, I'm not a coder, right? I know very basic code. I know HTML structure, whatever. But when you take what is chemicals in our brain and creativity from human thought and try to put it into a list of functions that can work in the same way, it just doesn't connect. And so, yes, one day there'll be enough functions to the average person to replicate that and look real. Look like AI art is incredible, right? It's doing really cool stuff. That's a whole different topic, though, in the way that that's created. But that was one of I briefly mentioned this on the State of Flow thing the other day, but that's something I really thought much longer after we got off. I was like, man, this is really interesting. Like, you're trying to take all these chemicals in our brain and then put it into functions and create something that is mimicking that. And I just don't think it's just not quite there yet. Some of these AIs are really good and much better. Like I did use Jasper for a little bit. I used Copy for a little bit. There's another one called Writer. It's kind of spelled weird, but it's Writer AI. Just to see are any of these, but it's pretty much the same thing through them all, at least right now. So that's kind of, that's where I'm at.
In the beginning, you said you quoted that UX change, and this kind of what you're now saying brings me to this. I think there is a big shift happening, and it's okay. And you just said developers are trying to put brain chemistry into some sort of, matrix / code / functions. But actually, I think it's a little bit different, like maybe even a little bit different, because first of all, not chemistry, not emotions, because it's never going to have emotions. Yes, Shane, you're doing great. And it's like a parent who doesn't care. yeah, go. So that's
we need to quote these things that you're saying. Line with a straight face and a parent who doesn't care.
So, but what I think actually happens is, I think that the shift is as big as when when Microsoft released Word and Sheets, right? Because before that, you would need to be a writer, you would need to have a typewriter, and even before that, to have a pen. And now you can typewriter. There's no Control Z, so you just start from scratch if you fuck up a page, right? But now Word allows everybody to become better at writing by just ability to delete and go back and remove a word and change with another word. So basically add that extra layer of functionality on top of writing, right? So editorial process becomes way much easier for everybody, as opposed to just, and then Sheets is the same. You're not a developer, but now you can use Sheets for calculations. So use it as a calculator. How much is 17 times 22? And you can use Sheets for that, but it's probably not the best use case, right? So, and then like 20, almost 30 years later, you look at an average office worker, how good they work with Sheets and Word, or now Docs and Sheets. Sorry, Excel. It was Excel.
Same thing.
So same thing. So Sheets and Word, how they work now, and you realize most of them don't know any functions, don't use it, just know how to look at it. But so same I think here. It's but everybody in the world, you cannot have a job. On most jobs, you have to understand how Docs and Sheets work, just fundamentally, at least basically saw it once. So same I think here. Yes, it's a big thing, but it's more of the paradigm shift is amazing. Like with these all tools, the only difference is that it's not that everybody will start using it now, and it's not that everybody will have proficient use, and it's not that everybody will know how to write prompts, and it's not that these things can do more than we think they can do, because again, they are a parent that doesn't care, right? So
yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, to be honest. And that was something I was thinking through as well, is like, it's going to basically raise the bar. Like the barrier to entry to get into content writing is now literally at the floor or below, right? With AI, right? Anyone can get on there. You're moving stuff around.
Learning, sorry.
Oh, you're just putting. I got you. You're just putting me on there. And yeah, and so like the bar is now just it's way down here, right? So anyone can get to there, but now to get to like that really good content writing or that really good AI art, you really have to know how to prompt it. And then to get to that next, so now it's this prompting game that people are jumping on and stuff like that. This another thing we chatted through the other day on State of Flow was, and I kind of mentioned this, is like that there's like these, when it comes to like design, right? There's design trends, or when it comes to fonts, we need to get rid of these fonts, stuff like that. And so I think AI like will just have this really low bar, but then it'll still have these trends. Like it will lean one way or lean another. And yeah, but there will still be people who will take forever, like you said, to catch up, to just use the basic core functions just to get it to write the most general things. And there's, a lot of people who just will never get into it because they want to do things their own way, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I do think like we just have to accept that it's here, it's coming to the masses, in all creative realms, right? I'm seeing like the video stuff's really, really cool. There's obviously tons of AI art. Then there's the writing, the content side of things. So it'll be interesting to see where it all goes. But yeah, like in 10 years, there'll still be people who have not even touched it or given it a shot. and they'll be way behind the prompting game. And we have no clue what it will look like. This stuff is just rapidly advancing in I would say just the consumer or the mass market. Like Rymar mentioned, like this stuff's been around. Like these things they've been testing these for years. Who knows how long the first AI whatever has been around. AI is obviously involved in social media, like algorithms and stuff. That's all AI, or very similar technology if it's not AI, quote unquote. But yeah, these trends they're rapidly developing. The trends are going to be all over the place. And I think what was cool is like ChatGPT proved a concept, right? Back in, I think it was November, October that it was released. And it shot up to 100 million users, like faster than any platform I think has ever done. And that's really cool. Like we proved the concept. People want this, right? This is it thinks for them. It's the ultimate lazy
Did we just prove that people are lazy once again? Yes, we did.
Essentially, yeah. And that's cool. Like you wanted to whip up a recipe, but like when it comes to SEO, the recipe game is killing it. People are out here creating recipes left and right. I mean, there's whole businesses who just put out recipes. That is a space on Google that is just like, I mean, it's very saturated, but there's some very successful people in that industry. And it sounds so silly, but people we love food, right? Let's not deny that. But yeah, I'll throw it back your way. See if you got anything to say or add into this, or if there's another topic we can move to.
Yeah, we can move to something else. I mean, but I could go forever because I was really 2 years alone sitting in a room and analyzing this topic without interacting with people, by actually, needing to do it. By actually needing to do it every week for like a few hours every week for a specific client. And yeah, the more you communicate with AI, the more you realize it's just a trick that makes us think that it's smart. But like actual Turing test is very far away,
Yeah.
All right, let's pick something from this. So we talked about this cluster. We also kind of talked about, we can talk about search engines and how they deal with AI content for those Webflow designers and developers that are thinking, we don't need to hire these guys anymore. No writers, no SEOs, man. We can do it ourselves. What do you think about that? So the question is, how do search engines deal with AI content? And I'm going to add a few sub-questions to follow up so we can start like a whole topic about it. And do you still need writers? Do you still need editors? Do you still need SEOs? Do you still need content managers? Or can you now just sell websites with AI written content and just, what do you think?
Well, how do search engines, this goes a lot of different ways. I think one, you're going to have a crowd of people going forward who say, are you using AI? Oh, great. We don't want to work with you. And if you are, there'll be tons of people who say, great, let's work. Because we know you can get to market faster with this, right? And so I think that's where we have to admit that it's just here, and we just have to take advantage of it in the ways that we can, right? But some of us still won't, right? This is tough. You said something and I forgot it. Making me think here.
I can tell you what I think.
Phrase the question again. So the question is how do search engines deal with it, but you took it a different route.
What stops a designer or design agency or Webflow development agency or a client that uses these services? What stops them not to work with you? Because now there's AI, you can get insane amounts of content and real fast. Why do they need us? Why do they need writers? Do they need them or?
Okay, so here's what I was going to say, right? So what is driving traffic to your website, right? If you're driving traffic from all other kinds of pay channels, stuff like that, great. Like your copy from AI, you might be able to make it work, right? There's no denying it's possible. But I think when you're talking about like blog as your main channel of organic growth, your on-page content, it depends how you're structuring that and like the page setup that you're going with. But yeah, I mean, if you're just creating this thin content, like if people scan through it and like, oh, this is like they're just going to leave. And so one of the big things, and Google didn't give much detail on this, but like those first couple 1 to 5 results on Google, they have some way of figuring out if someone just goes on there real quick and then your bounce rate is real bad, they're just going to downrank you really fast. And so if people land on something and you wrote a ton of AI content for it on a blog, and it matches a search query that someone throws out, and they just scan through it real quick, oh, this is weak, and they just exit, Google detects that. I mean, I'm guessing it's just through your search console and your bounce rate or your analytics channels as well, but you get downranked, and you can get downranked really fast on Google for a bad bounce rate. And so, yeah, when it comes to like that experience of search query, finding a web page, staying on it and not bouncing, I think that's where like quality content really matters, to keep them on there, quality copy content. And so that's kind of where I land with it. But there'll be plenty of people who just write really crappy content and continue to use AI and drive traffic from a paid channel of some sort, or LinkedIn or whatever. And to them, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect them. They'll still convert somebody, right?
I would say it converts quite well. Like on this part, I don't know if I agree, because I think on the conversion part, like AI in a way kind of understands things better than human in that structural, very density in short form. Because what we say lean, we mean like anything longer than a few sentences, it fails horribly to continue, right? Or you don't agree?
No, I'm just listening.
Okay. So my experience is I learned a lot from AI about my own writing, because I spotted when it makes a mistake, logic mistake, like a brutal one, like a 2-year-old writing this brutal mistake, but still uses perfect short-term converting copy structure, those marketing frameworks, like problem, agitation, solution, or things like that. You then spot that, whoa, I have been using this for 10 years, but I didn't never kind of put it into some sort of formula. And now because I spotted AI making a logic mistake inside that formula content-wise, I can spot that formula in my own writing, because now I'm editing it like this 3-year-old copy. So that part, I think it's good for that part. Like if you don't need search traffic, if say paid channels, and you can spot your users visitors whatever pain points, can solve them and can force feed them with a spoon like a good CTA. Yeah, because paid channel copy is always very short, simple, straight to the point. Hey, cheap, buy it. That's it. No?
I totally get what you're saying, and I can't say I fully disagree, but I'll push back. And say one thing is those really short, whatever headliner copies that just are meant for really high conversion. We've probably fed it tons of that content, right? I mean, that is everywhere, and so it has tons of data to work with on those. But the other thing is, I think what you're leaning into then is a bias, right? So if you say 50% off, buy now, right? Well, now we're on this bias of we're way over here. So it's never going to write the really slow, methodical, I want to convert you over time. I want to like qualify you. So that's where I say, I agree with you. I think can it write those? Great. But that's just one side of marketing. That's maybe the more like consumer side, the discount savvy, buy now kind of style. And that's one side of marketing, in my opinion. So yeah, I agree and disagree. I think you have a really good point, but I also think it's what we fed a ton of it, and you then lean into a bias. And the problem is I don't know how they write the code on this AI stuff, but if you push it into a bias, it's really hard to push it the other way until it's fed loads of other content that makes it realize I now have two viewpoints on this, what is like a one greater topic. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I actually took a note. This is a duplicate. Wait, where was it? Oh, so this is gonna become a thing that then training your own AI models
There's already one out on this. Let me see if I can find it.
Because then I think it's something like this. So then we would have a scenario based on what you're saying. We would have a scenario where free tools and resources and libraries, and basically, because SEO, the way I see it, is good information infrastructure. If the site is understandable for the crawler, and then useful for the user, that's good SEO, right? And then, so that's why things like free tools and resources and libraries and keeping like a good, dense information infrastructure, right? That's what I would say like is good SEO, right? But that takes a lot of energy. That's why every website don't want to do that if possible, because it requires a lot of people, a lot of money, and a lot of just attention to detail, and a lot of internal linking, and a lot of other things, right?
Yeah.
So with this whole, what we spoke in the beginning, gated content and things like that, right? That would mean that if this kind of starts shifting that way, then tools and resources becomes even more a thing, even more, especially if we gate things. Because you cannot gate 3 blog posts and then be like, hey, pay.
Yeah.
But you can gate insanely good library on some sort of very niche down topic on, I don't know, Webflow development. On, hey, we're going to show everything how to run an agency from blah, 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 and then the whole shebang. Basically what courses are, but it can be also other types of any type of content, right? So then you could also train on your own models, because you said bias, right? So
yeah,
it might be that the future of AI is not generalistic trained models, because everybody might start thinking these are 3-year-olds. We need a very niche down specific 3-year-old, not a generic 3-year-old.
Yeah. And there was just, I just found it the other day, and I thought I bookmarked it. I can't find it, but it is an AI. It's a word-based AI thing, and you can train it on your own models, or you can train the model to fit what you fed it. And I just don't know where that leaves us, right? Like if you're writing content for this one specific, I don't know, realtors or something like that, right? Real estate maybe. It will just keep feeding back that. I just find it hard to know, like without knowing the back end, the inner workings of this, is it just going to push you down that one side, right? Because like we do hold on to some bias as humans, right? And the AI is going to pick up on that and essentially lean, there's a lot of stuff around Elon Musk right now, but he does say some good things about AI, and the way like the biases will lean. And he's been talking about this since I remember he talked about it in 2008, which was a really long time ago. And the way AI is going and stuff like that, and just warnings around it. So I don't know. It's really tough to speculate. Like if you talk to the same AI thing every day and it's trained on what you are feeding it, aren't you just going to get like the same thing? I don't know. It's tough. I'm reading Colleen's comment here. I read a bit.
So you're reading this one. We skipped Isabel,
Yeah.
but we're gonna come back in a second.
I was gonna come back.
Colleen is saying that she read about how to feed them. Yeah, this is, I think, gonna become a thing real soon, because generic 3-year-old is not cool, but specified 3-year-old, that's kind of cool, right? So, and she's saying also that it's also possible to give ChatGPT a sample of your own work.
The only difference there is that it's a one-time use, if I'm not mistaken, because you go into the singular chat, you give it that, it imitates it, but it can never go back to that one as of now, I believe. What were you going to say now?
You guys, your bias thing, you guys ever look into, like, most, especially bigger companies or medium to bigger companies, nobody reads your CV. AI reads your CV. You guys know that, right? No? Okay. So the thing is that AI determines modules of what a good worker is. And eventually it ends up being like the variables that it finds. For example, if your name is Jason and you play lacrosse, that's a good worker because of that biases. And that's why in Europe, they're pushing for a lot of laws depending on what industries you touch, like here, you're kind of hurting people, right? Because if my name is not Jason and I don't play lacrosse, and that's like a variable that you pick by accident, just because by training on the same data, as you say, data has a bias, and eventually certain things would pop up by no reason. And AI treats this as causation, even though it's just a weird correlation thing, So that's, I think, what's gonna happen is we're gonna start to realize, and I know that in Europe they're pushing for this. If you touch certain aspects, then you have to prove your data sets, and also the other issue will be like we have to be able to ask AI how it got to that conclusion, because that 3-year-old got to that conclusion somehow, and usually really it's not the way you think it got there.
And Reimar brought that up the other day in State of Flow, and I thought that was a really interesting point. One other thing, though, too, and maybe you were touching on this and I didn't catch it, but if AI is reading our resumes, you can just put in what it wants to look for the job. And then you can qualify yourself.
CV optimization services, like SEOs, like CVOs, so like you're optimizing CVs for people because what kind of how to optimize for AI. So now we're optimizing for search engines, but we can also optimize now for example, application services, because you can kind of no.
Let's touch on what Isabel asked earlier. How would you deal with a team member that keeps using it for posts and stuff like that? How would you deal with that? What do you got on that one?
Wait, so let me double read that. So how would you deal with a team member that keeps using ChatGPT for company posts and doesn't edit them, so it all sounds really
I'd say look at their impression ratios and stuff like that. Like, are they getting engagement? Because it may not be a problem.
If you're still here, and I assume you are, can you drop me like a quick, what kind of posts? Like in Slack, like in Slack, your stand-up or company social media posts or blog posts? Because this is like a very different level of from firing to bro, stop.
Well, I was thinking LinkedIn or press releases. That was my initial thought.
Yeah.
LinkedIn post.
LinkedIn post. Okay. Well,
I don't think. I'll say something. I don't think it's a huge deal on the potentially. If it's creating engagement, there's good impressions. Okay, she's seeing very little engagement. Well, then it's a whole different story. Yeah, I'd say them, yo, stop this.
Look, so wait, before we say engagement low, we have to understand one thing. Social media now, especially for companies, have low engagement as it is. Like it's paid to play. Like social media for companies is now paid to play. So that's something I wouldn't judge, because I work with teams that have a social media, guy or a girl or something, or just a social media person, and they publish things, but nobody expects that anybody ever will see them. It's more of a proof when they some user visits their site, they go to social media, see, oh, they're active. Okay, cool. So they're actually a business that's happening. But yeah, you were saying something. Sorry.
I definitely lost my train of thought, but I think, if they're very little engagement, I would, I'd say stop, especially on LinkedIn. Now, this is more niche specific, but I mean, there's a lot of people that drive tons of revenue just off organic LinkedIn posts. And I do agree, a lot of this is paid to play, but like LinkedIn is that one where you can drive a lot of organic revenue from. And if it's little engagement, it's not really helping. And like, what's the purpose of it at that point? I don't think, I mean, I'm not an HR person by any means, but I'd just be like, yo, can you stop? And then if they want to, they can start with ChatGPT. There's nothing wrong with that, but don't end with ChatGPT. Like, get it to create an idea. But I think that also shows, this is where I struggle with AI too, is if you're going to AI to start your creative process, how creative are you in the first place? I have a million ideas every day. That is just how my brain works. But I also can't keep concentration long enough to execute on a million ideas a day, and no one could ever do that. So that's where I'm like, man, if you are that uncreative, like, fill your life with something else that is going to make you really like I don't know, like there's so many different ways to spark creativity. There was a book that talked about this a lot, but it was changing daily patterns. So if you drive one way to work every day, drive a different way. If you're locked inside your house now because you just work from home all day, get outside, go somewhere new, do things to spark creativity. That would be my argument on like a more ethical level, I guess, if you will.
I mean, leave your comfort, like real hard. Jump with a parachute, man. I'm afraid of heights. Was the best day of my life. Also the scariest when my wife brought me parachute jumping. I'm afraid of being on a ladder. But also you learn things that you wouldn't expect. For example, your brain refuses to admit when you're sitting on an edge of an airplane that this is height. So back up there, it's not height anymore. So when you do things always constantly like that, then you cannot not be creative because you kind of push yourself out of the... I was thinking that this is going to be the biggest issue. And same here, like with anything else, content production is a work. And yeah, I get why somebody would use ChatGPT for LinkedIn, but maybe that's the wrong person to do content if they need ChatGPT to write them.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there is a process, there's like a method to this madness, right? There's some sort of write the biggest thing, for example, like a meta big blog post, and then chop it down into pieces and feed it to LinkedIn, and then chop it down even smaller pieces, feed it to Twitter, and then chop it down to, I don't know, maybe even bigger pieces to collect a few and make a video about them, or start with a bit. I don't know. There's like always, when you work with content, this modular approach. Everything is connected to everything. And if you don't get that, and you think that, I just need to write. Also, like, isn't this just an average office worker, like below low, medium average worker thing where it's like minimum effort, minimum pay, minimum effort, just like ChatGPT enter about next thing.
Colleen brought up a interesting point that we briefly touched on. I know we planned about talking about this, but I'll let you kind of kick this one off if you want.
So Colleen is saying, if you extend Isabella's question, what happens when we're all using AI and then AI is being fed AI content to learn? Also builds on Shane was asking too. We touched this, a little bit already. Bad things happen. What do you think? Shane, start. I will take some notes, but start. What do you think happens when AI data sets are made by AI?
Yeah, so this is where I'm trying so hard not to be biased on this. And the conversation the other day with Ryan on State of Flow was really good. And he pushed back a little bit on some things I said, and it helped me just like realize a few things. I don't want to be biased on talking about bias, but when I think of cognitive bias, and there's so many different ways, this is just like, I'm going to go real deep on this one. This is just how our brains form as humans, right? When we're born, right? The way we were raised, how we were raised, where we were raised, culture, all these things play into what we assume is correct in the world. And then things challenge that over time. We're like, oh, it wasn't actually that way. It's this way. Oh, or there's a whole other viewpoint to this idea, stuff like that. And I think when it comes down to like writing, well, actually really any of these, like right now, AI is really in the creative space, at least the way I see it. It's probably great in like an engineer position, right? Like it is functional, it is logical. Well, it can be logical when it wants to, but long term, I think in like stuff like engineering, AI is going to be incredible, right? Because it's function based, and that's how you do things. Maybe in medicine too, one day, when we can trust it, is that it's an algorithm. But creativity has never really been an algorithm, right? You might start with you might have ways that you start, right? Ways that you kind of build that foundation, or things that you do to kind of, I'm going to write down just what I'm thinking and then try to formulate ideas or whatever it might be, right? But until like, it's really tough. But like, if we put our bias into AI, right? We feed it all this content, we feed it this stuff, and then it gets spit back out, and then we place it in places that AI then just rescans and takes it back in. I don't know that it's going to be that creative. I struggle to believe that it will lead to great creativity rather than just lead you more down a trend or a bias. Gmail does learn from emails. Did she say one other thing?
So Colleen
I
also was
missed
saying autocomplete and impersonal thing. And what you just said, I took 2 notes that's kind of maybe tangent out of this. One is you say, yeah, we're probably the reason why AI got so big immediately on creative stuff, as in image generation, right? Creating memes and not memes, like some sort of digital art, right? And then also, because it's also kind of a meme. It's not creating unique digital art. It's creating a meme in itself is like taking some sort of pre-existing concept and just repurposing, and that's how a meme rolls, right? So it kind of does the same thing because you feed it some sort of prompt. So it's not uniquely created. If you say a whale, it's going to try to look for a whale, which is where the meme comes in. It's not that it's going to be like create something completely which some artists can do. You ask them for a whale and they're going to bring you something completely not related to fishes even, But so that's why I think that's why it shines so fast and speedy on the creativity. You mentioned it, like AI now is creative, but maybe now it's going to go the other route. And when it reaches those technical things, then it's going to be amazing. And you know what I think? It could be true because creativity is easier to fake than engineering. If AI writes a poor piece of code, doesn't work. Like with development, it's very easy. Does it work or no? There's no in between. There's no gray. And I think AI now dabbles in that gray. It's like never yes, never no. It's always somewhere floating around in the sky, like up and above. So I think that's why people who create good imagery or good content or whatever, that's why they notice, oh, this is low quality, because we're used to look for that, yes, no in between, not stopping before that. And AI can stop it before. And if you don't know, so what do you think about that?
I don't know if I have specific. I don't know if I have specific thoughts back on that. The one thing I was kind of thinking through is the way to maybe negate the bias is to have those. We need to know how it arrived at that conclusion, so we can spot. And I want to use bias and maybe trend interchangeably because when it leans one way, yeah, it is a bias, but it also is like a trend. If we feed it all this stuff on whatever, and it leans that way. Then if we have conclusion basis along the way, we can spot that, or at least have the opportunity to spot that, and then say, oh, I want to take this way. Or if it's a piece of AI art, actually, I want it to more have that pastel look or whatever it might be, right? There's so many different things you could do with that. So yeah, I think it's going to trend different ways. I think that's kind of inevitable. But yeah, I think having the conclusion basis along the way is going to be really key, and using it long term, especially.
Like how nobody knows what's happening. I love that. I think when Excel came out, did people speculate as much as we did now? Like imagine those days. Excel comes out, Microsoft introduces Excel and Word. And do people speculate? No, one day everybody in the office will have to know how to use this. Otherwise, they're fired. Was that like because I cannot imagine this happening, but we do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Excel is on job resumes, and obviously I'm not that old, to be honest. I don't even remember when it came out. But it's on job resumes, and you don't have to really know. Come on, you could just say, yeah, I know how to use Excel, and I can punch in the.
But you cannot say I don't know how to use it.
Well, yeah, you say you know how to use it, but
if you're looking for a job and they ask you, can you use Excel, and you say, no, man, never used it, they're not hiring you 200%.
Well, they might train you on it, right? But I think I've had plenty of friends who were interns at one point, and they were all just the Excel. Everything that came to them was Excel. When you think about accounting teams, though, and especially really big revenue companies, Excel was a massive shift in speed to execution or speed to the end result, stuff like that. It was huge.
Same here. Speed, end result.
And we still use Sheets or whatever now,
And that's why I can only think of one thing that happened before this, because before there was an accountant with a big book writing it down by hand, everything, and counting. Okay, they or she had a calculator. That's the only kind of tech thing. But they would keep the books. That's why it's called the books, because it was literally the books. And then somebody turned it into a programmable. The books can now, every cell in the books can talk to another cell in the books. Yeah, what you gonna do about that, guys? And they just released the software, which is fundamentals of programming. Basically, Excel is like very, very low fidelity, very low level programming, like at the most basic level. But that changes things forever. Like nobody will ever keep a book unless it's some sort of black market thing that it cannot be on the internet.
I think you brought up one really good point. I just kind of connected these dots. Is that the books used to be point to point, right? I take these numbers, I add them up here, and I'm using my calculator from one point to the next. Excel took us from point A to like 99, right?
I change one thing here, everything changes, right?
Right. So I think I just correlated that to AI. Is we start here now, it's going to take us way over here, like long term, like when it is more usable in certain areas. Obviously, like we've talked about, it does have functionality, like we're not denying that, but the trusting it, I guess, a little bit more long term, like it will take us from that starting point much farther into the process than maybe our creativity would and stuff like that.
Imagine like your website being fluid, as in more and more AI kind of plays with elements and plays with layouts and plays with a lot of things based on. So this is kind of, I think we're just going to get used to this fluidness. Like Excel made it not sturdy book, but now fluid data flow. Same here, right? So I asked for a next question. Yeah. Continue.
I'm going to go to Isabel's there if you want to pull that up.
Sure.
What would it need to undergo? I think it needs to have a consistent creative process. We need to have conclusion basis along the way. So we need to see how did it get there? And we need to see that. So for every prompt, I want to see, like, I would love to see, okay, that's how it got to that conclusion. Great. Now I can spot what I don't like and go the other way, or prompt it a different direction or restart. I think we need to have both AI that is just a one, like I get into ChatGPT, I do my thing and I get out. And then we need to have other ones that remember everything that we've talked about in the past. So I think both of those are great use cases. And then like just consistency and expertise, right? Like get me to the end result faster. Like it still misses those basic grammar errors on prompt 1. Even prompt 2, sometimes it would still miss stuff for me. And then, maybe just be more creative. Like I'll give one example that I mentioned before, but I was trying to create a podcast name, or I was just speculating, what would I want to call a podcast if I had one? And I prompted ChatGPT about 15 times and it broke every rule that I had previously established with it multiple times. And it just, it was giving me the same thing almost on every prompt. It just couldn't think outside of the few words that it was trying to use. And maybe I was being a little bit too hard on it, but for me, I can get to the end point way faster than that specific use case could have. And it was just a waste of time at the end of the day. But on the other hand, I've had it write code targeting specific classes in Webflow, and it works perfectly. Or it took one other prompt to get it polished. And that's really cool, right? That is a great use case right now. If you just want to play around with code and you don't know how to code like me, I think that's a really fun use case to have to just start exploring. But for it to really work for coders, it needs to be able to read all the code in a complete database or whatever you want to call it. Because if you just, especially for websites, if we just use ChatGPT to code these one little things, we'll lose good semantic structure over time if we inject a ton of code into a project. So it needs to be able to scan all code and correlate it all, connect it all, make sure it all works. rather than these one-offs that you can do small fun stuff. But yeah, I feel like I got a couple things in there of like, if it has this, this, and this, I'll take it a little more seriously.
What kind of stuff? What's the most fun code snippet you forced out of ChatGPT and used on your Webflow site?
I haven't done a ton. None of it's live. None of it's published. So that tells you something. But I was just prototyping around with a completely different design than what I had. And I was able to make it like change the color of 3 big pieces of text back and forth, like in a sequence. So it was just like kind of had like a cool blinking feature to it. But then I looked at it again and I showed it to my friend who she does design, and she's like, yeah, it looks like crap. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's just like a prototype. And, but I, in the Webflow space, at least, like you have like Timothy Ricks and like WebBay and some other people and stuff. So I'm curious to see if anyone else has started to use AI, or at least ChatGPT and stuff, to start writing code. Yeah. So
I haven't forced anything out of ChatGPT code-wise. Yeah. I don't know why. Maybe because I never come up with a solution. I'm never looking for a custom code solution, which is why I'm trying to make as many developer friends as we can. Because then they say, bro, I can throw this developer move and instead of working for 10 minutes every week, yeah, I'm gonna spend 3 hours, but then you're gonna have it forever.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's kind of interesting, like adding it to your life. I took it maybe too early to started playing with it too early to be excited now. Something like that. So it's more like, oh, I think I feel what 6 months from now, and because humanity collaboratively, what it took me 6 months to realize, I think humanity will realize in a few months or maybe 6 months that, oh, these issues, that's why I love some laws that are coming out in Europe, especially with this thing. But yeah, I really agree with that part and really wish we get this thing right. And that thing is, how did you get to this conclusion? Like, was this generated? Like, show me because on Excel, if a formula fucks up, you can at least track it where it broke the chain, right? Where it's some sort of something, which, for example, happens like instead of typing with one symbol, you're typing differently in the number, and now it's a text instead of number, and then it doesn't work or something, right? So, yeah. But with AI, no, you don't see those 4 cells in between. And when that happens, I think we're gonna truly start to see potential of applications, because people who know what they're doing don't trust it, because they see how big of a mistakes you can make, and just, as we said, like straight face.
Lie to you with a straight face and parents who don't care.
Yeah, AI is like a parent who don't care. So.
Yeah.
All right. So
yeah, I think I'll just throw this one other thing. I think like the masses flocked to ChatGPT, right? The minute Google Bard, which is Google's great naming system, is out, and the Bing thing is like, stop, it's no longer suicidal and stuff like that. Colleen mentioned that the other day. Then the masses will just go back to the search engines, right? Because ChatGPT you can use, but they've put up a paywall if you want like better performance, and I'm sure they'll, like the API just released, was it yesterday or maybe a few days ago? So I think the masses will just go back to the search engines with that maybe UX change, and then businesses and other AI apps will start pulling from APIs and stuff like that. But yeah, I think like we proved the concept, and now the big shift to where it actually is going to land is still down the road, I think, if I had to speculate.
That big thing, I think I shared it as well, and the fun part was software can refuse to collaborate with you. I love. Like, I work with so many
I've never been
UX.
So hurt.
Yeah, I work with UX, UI guys, and I work with teams like preparing this stuff and working for months and even years developing this whole thing and using it, looking at user flows and like just always, grinding on it. And then we would like sometimes laugh out of like people that would not kind of take certain things seriously, as understanding that seeing a person lost in your software on Hotjar is the saddest thing ever, because they don't know what to do, because some sort of other UX designer, for example, made a mistake, and that mistake is so crucial that users don't understand what to do with it. Like, it's not intuitive or something. So you feel sad, right? But now, on the flip side, software refusing, because Bing in the beginning said to users, hey, Bing has been a good chatbot, you're being a bad user, I don't want to work with you. And that part I liked. I mean, this kind of just opens the possibilities, not necessarily through this way that your computer will refuse to turn on in the morning because of the vibes you were giving yesterday. But in general, but in general, as we said, like fluid websites or fluid, your UI on your most favorite tool, for example, Ahrefs, slightly shifts based on how you click on things, how you like move around. It's kind of gradually, slowly shifting to mold to your experience. As in, I think that's going to be amazing. So these kind of applications where that creativity is calculated creativity, not burst creativity, that's going to be awesome. But that burst so far seems like a long way to go. And I don't know if we want to push it to that side of, hey, all the blog posts on the internet is now written by AI. How about that?
Yeah, if I could speculate a little more, I think in a few years, when we really push these things to their limits, we'll actually probably get pretty good at spotting a really thin piece of AI written content. And I think there'll be, like on a blog post, you normally put an author. Well, if you only used AI, we're going to have to start claiming that, right? I'm sure there'll be some laws or legal stuff that comes into play with that. And who knows, that could develop so many different ways. But I still think there'll be a user who's like, oh, this was written by AI, and it's not very, whatever. It's just, I don't trust it, or there'll be some pushback, right? And you might lose a customer because of that. So I think there's a lot of conversations that need to be had still. I don't want to open up a whole nother can of worms, but I just want to throw that out there.
I mean, we can chat, don't worry. But if that checkup happens and other stuff happens, because I don't know how much you know, but like Europe has these laws now for data sets. So the more, how on in Google there's like my money, my life things. So they are going through more scrutiny than that kind of sites.
Okay, you like the sites who produce stuff on how to spend your money?
No. Wait. YM. I'm bad at acronyms. So wait. Let me double. So. Wait.
Invisible.
Your money. Yes. Your money. Yeah. Your money. Your life. Wait. So your life. So your money or life on Google is basically means that if you work with finances, healthcare, you're a doctor or whatever, your site gets even a higher layer of scrutiny. And they released EAT. They released EAT as a first base on only those sites. But soonish, everybody started to realize that, wait, you don't release things just for a specific niche, right? But when they did that multiple times over time, they're just trying to make sure that marketers will not. Isabel says she's still here. That's awesome. So we both know the problem, what happened in the past with content when marketers would write medical articles with a straight face and just be like, hey, coffee is good for you, and here's reasons why, and click on these affiliate links, right? So then eventually Google had to do something about it, because these guys are just salesmen writing whatever they need to write to sell. And that's why, especially with medicine stuff, but with other things also, there's more scrutiny. So law, medicine, finances, things that can hurt you. Like things that if you get bad advice, your body or your health or your financial being or whatever probably will be affected negatively, right? So that's why they call it IMIL, niches, your money or life niches. And those started with those, but then EAT kind of gradually spread to other areas. And now we're more used to show that expertise, authoritativeness, and get that trust. So yeah, where I was going with this is that kind of, we will be living through that. As you say, claim to your content, we will be living through this again. And this is going to be certain types of content cannot be generated by AI, period. That's it.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying now. Yeah, there's a lot of potential legal implications with AI, and spaces you can and can't. I'm sure there'll become spaces you can and can't use it, or they'll create AI, whatever protocols for like medicine, especially stuff like that. But yeah, people. I mean, if you trust stuff that you read on the internet with 100% certainty, you may need to check yourself. But even more so, with AI, I mean, the straight up lies that with a straight face that it has said. I mean, there's been tons of stuff on Twitter, and it's even gotten political, and it's like, okay, where's the line of this going to end? And I think that's where, there will be a lot of legal stuff around it, and the creators of these tools, like OpenAI, will have to potentially limit it to what it can speak on and stuff like that.
It already does that.
Yeah, I mean,
but you saw that funny stuff. I won't talk about Trump, but I can talk about Biden. Why?
Now, did they program it that way, or is that a bias? I don't know. I don't want to get in too far into that, but I think, like, okay, for like medical, especially, like, I could see them like having to take that out of their system, and then that hurts investors, and that hurts, like, there's all these trail effects of that. Or you can only use it this way, or we created this AI just for medical, and that's the only one that's approved. Stuff like that. I could see this going a lot of different ways legally.
Basically, they graded different areas. The more they can affect your or ruin your life, the more you have to first get the data set approved. Gotcha. So it's not that I can just train things on medicine. No, we're just going to really check your data set. Of course, government bodies, things like that, not that simple, but at least it happened before these kind of things started happening before ChatGPT. So maybe some other countries will be catching up on stuff. But that's why I wanted to kind of have you here, and that's why we're going to be closing down soon. That's one of the reasons why I really liked the conversation, and also that's why I think we can continue forever, is because you have really that indebted, that bias problem, right, with AI, like that it kind of knows some stuff but is not aware to others, and we humans understand it in ourselves, so we try to not to speak our mouth, as like not say something if we don't know, if we imagine that we might not know certain things, right? But AI doesn't have that. It's just gonna tell you the answer, no problem there. So
yeah, I'll say this one more thing to kind of close out on like the whole ethical thing. I feel is like humans have always been the innovators, right? So we've either gotten if we go way back to the beginning of existence or whatever, like there was, at some point we thought of this, at some point we thought of innovation, or like the late 1800s, we had industrialization and stuff like that. We created the assembly line, and it drove this massive innovation. And humans were always able to, like, the way our brains work is we connect this one thing that maybe is the old way, and somehow we get to the new way. Whereas AI says, here's what I've been given. Let me take all the list of functions I've been trained on and work down this in a logical only way, where it may not, and I don't know the in-depth workings of these systems, but there's got to be a limitation as of now, at least, where it can't say, oh, let's actually take that old way and let's go to this new way and let's drive innovation. All it is, as of now, is this basis to start to get to step 3, 4, 5, 6. And then the human has to take it farther. But if we start with that, we may limit ourselves to never think of the other way, the new way out of this problem, whatever the problem is. So that's where, like, on the ethics side,
because you don't have to grind the boring thing. Because usually the best ideas come when you are grinding the boring thing. You're thinking, wait, there has to be an easier way. Like, this is, that's how assembly line happened, right?
Right.
There has to be a better way to build things. Like, now I'm sitting here for 5 days suing this thing. hey, how about I make this and you make that, and we all together in a circle. And then you realize, wait, so we together are more than the sum parts of what we are alone. And it's like, yeah, that's like a good, I think that's another hour if we open this now.
Let's not open it too far. I do have to get going. But
all right.
I'll say one other thing too unless I just lost my train of thought. I was gonna say one other thing around that. Shoot. Yeah, I just lost it.
Assembly line, 5 steps. If you skip a step, then maybe you skipped like the end game completely. No, nothing, doesn't ring a bell.
I just lost it. But yeah, I mean, I think I don't want to. Oh no, I was gonna say this. Long term, the human connection, a human story is going to be the driving thing of everything, because of AI, right? We're going to get this really basic lie to you with a straight face parent who doesn't care, and so the humanness of everything will just have to come out more, or I think we'll just become these stale existences, with no spark, like no, I don't know. That's the way I see it, and that's just my hot take. But I'll leave it there. We could close.
I don't know why, but in my head, this just resonated with some sort of dumb video I watched on YouTube about fridges taking over and just fridge not letting you buy another something in the supermarket because you already have a pack of milk. Why are you buying a new one? And like shaming you for your food habits and stuff like that, So
yeah,
I think we will have to tune out, because some of the things are buying a pack of chips and a few beers on Friday is human. And if AI calculated it's not good for you, yeah, I know, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's
sure.
zoning out. Oh, this is just a toddler giving me advice. Sometimes I need toddler advice, but sometimes not. That kind of burst out of more human. I hope, honestly, because also let's don't forget that fact that 20 years from now, there's still going to be people who will be lying on their resumes that they tried ChatGPT and they know how to use it, even though they never opened it up. So somewhere in between, right?
Yeah. I do have high hopes long-term for AI to drive loads of innovation and push the bar even higher, but I'm skeptical of its current state. I think that's kind of where I land.
Okay. So I would say, to sum up, bias, no, try to bypass that. Show me how you worked and show me how you got to this. And let's try to find more ways to do technical stuff rather than the creative ones, because no matter how much we force it to be creative, it's probably not the way creativity works in the first place, right?
That's my hot take, yeah.
That was awesome, man. This was Shane, and I was also here. And it was super awesome. Oops. Yeah, and I see some people are still with us after almost an hour and a half. This was super awesome. I could continue. And I think if you're okay with that, I would like to invite you one more time soonish to talk about more non-AI related like SEO stuff, and just like, it's really interesting to see your take after a year of trying to push back in the industry. And also you have like experiences in other content creation types, like mentioned something, video, sound, things like that, right?
Yeah, I've done a ton of music and audio. I've studied audio to lengths that I wish I couldn't speak on sometimes. I was in the medical field for 4 years. I was a paramedic. So it's an algorithm based, but there is still some creativity in the way you can work the algorithms with some freedom on medicine. But you also just learn so much about humans. I mean, I saw thousands and thousands of patients, and you just learn so much from people. So audio, video, and now I'm in the Webflow and SEO and content space. So
I think we're going
to e-commerce.
If you're up for it, I would love to have any kind of, especially if it's like it could be also even some sort of weird workshop, because I was always thinking about also adding this doing things live element to this eventually. It's still hard to get it going as it is, but Because I think with
I'm all for it.
Webflow, but think about like you work with WordPress, you know how speed improved. Was that one of the reasons you picked Webflow, because of speed?
Oh, I just hated WordPress from the start.
I also hated WordPress from the start.
But I quickly learned, and like did we talk about this off camera or this was on camera? The whole semantic code thing is massive, and I'm realizing, wow. And when it comes to load, right, the less code you have to load, the better, right? The less JavaScripts that have to run, all that stuff. So yeah, there's a lot more conversation.
And that's a teaser to the next episode, guys. Next time Shane's on, know that this is where we're going to start, where we left off. It was awesome to have you here. We're just going to end the stream here. You don't need to run away from the StreamYard. We can close down peacefully, but I'm going to be ending the YouTube stream now. And thanks, Isabel. Thanks, Colleen, for being here. Thanks, Shane, for this kind of amazing brain-teasing thing. And then thanks everybody who are watching this afterwards, after the stream is over, and we're going to end it here. See you guys next week. And next week, we have a very, very, very cool topic, which is when do you not need SEO? When your client doesn't need SEO? What kind of business doesn't need SEO? And we're going to be joined by, no other than Friends Agency co-founder Marcelo. So this is going to be awesome, and I'm really looking forward for that. And we're going to analyze like a very weird thing to analyze, which is, when you don't need SEO. So that's next week. And thanks for being with us this week. And we're going to be ending it here. Bye, guys.
See ya.
Bye, guys.